Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for coming out for today's lecture from Shay Welch. And I know you're here to see Shay, but I'm going to introduce her, and I'm Dietrich Stout, and I'm here because I'm the director of the Center for Mind, Brain, and Culture, which is sponsoring this lecture. And I'm very pleased to see a lot of unfamiliar faces here. So I'm going to do a little bit to introduce our center in case you're not really familiar with us. The mission of the CMBC is to support and foster discussion, scholarship, training, and collaboration across diverse disciplines, basically anything that relates to mind, brain, and culture. And if you look at some of our peer institutions, you'll find centers directed to things like mind and brain. It's somewhat unique to add culture to that, and I think the scope of this center, which embraces not just the biological sciences, the natural sciences, the behavioral sciences, the social sciences, but also the arts and humanities. And that's really what we're trying to achieve here. So we try to be a truly interdisciplinary center. This is reflected to some degree in our leadership. I'm the director, as I mentioned, Dietrich Stout. Our associate director is in biology, Robert Liu. Our advisory committee comes from the business school, anthropology, biology, psychology, Center for Ethics, math and computer science. And we have now started adding also board members from some of our local institutions, such as Spelman, and Shay has been kind enough to join our advisory committee recently. What we do is we host lectures like this one. It's probably our main activity, but we also have smaller events like lunchtime discussions. We might pair a couple faculty to talk about something and people attend. We have lunch. We sponsor larger conferences and symposia, typically in May. In fact, we had one on the topic of embodied cognition a few years ago. So we do a variety of things. We're recording this. We record all of our events, and we actually have them available to you online in a searchable database going back years. There's a lot of really great content on there. I would encourage you to visit our website and check it out just to find things you might be interested in. It can be interesting, useful to faculty for teaching as well, and that sort of thing. Here is just a sampling. We do try to, we had a speaker recently from Georgia Tech talking about a fully executable AI version of Vision. And today we're having Shay Welch. So you can see that we cover a wide range of different kinds of topics. And in the different sorts of formats that I mentioned. So remaining in this semester, we have, for instance, Chet Sherwood from George Washington University, who does evolutionary neuroscience. Here are some of the workshops. I mentioned the Embodied Cognition, Minds and Movement workshop. The Associate Director, Robert Liu, put together Sense and Salience. We had a conference in order of our founding director on naturalism, evolution, and religion. And this spring, we are helping to support a memorial symposium for Emory researcher Larry Young. I want to point out that if you are a graduate student or you have friends who are graduate students, the CMBC offers a graduate certificate. Basically, you can take a core course with us. We talk about making sure you have some electives across departments. You become eligible for small amounts of funding to support travel and that kind of thing. It's a really great opportunity to experience an interdisciplinary community with a like-minded cohort of other graduate students. If you're at all interested, please reach out to me and I'd be happy to talk with you about it. Here are some of our graduate certificates, students across many different departments. But we also just sent out our call for next year's undergraduate fellows. So in case I think there may be some undergraduates in the audience, if you're going to be doing like a research project in your final year, we sponsor undergraduate fellows. You apply, and again, you participate in the life of the center, attend some meetings, and become eligible for small amounts of financial support. To find out about us, join our listserv. That way you'll find out about all of our events in advance and sign up for things like the sponsored lunches that we do. Here, you can click on this or just visit our website and become an affiliate, and you'll find out about all of the great things we do. So sorry for making this all about the CMBC so far, because I know that you're all here to see Dr. Welch, who is an associate professor of philosophy at Spelman College. She's also currently the scholar in residence for the City of Atlanta's Public Art Project, Public Performance Art as Resistance to Epistemic Injustice. Shay has been a Carnegie Corporation and Rockefeller Foundation Distinguished Research Creative Scholar. She was chair of the Association for Feminist Ethics and Social Theory and a board member for the Emotions Matter National Nonprofit Organization. Her current book is Choreography as Embodied Critical Inquiry, Embodied Cognition and Creative Movement. Her recent book was The Phenomenology of a Performative Knowledge System, Dancing with Native American Epistemology. And she has previous books, Existential Eroticism, A Feminist Ethics Approach to Women's Oppression, Perpetuating Choices, and A Theory of Freedom, Feminism and the Social Contract. At Spelman, she teaches courses on freedom, embodied knowledge, embodied cognition, dance, systemic oppression, ethics, epistemology, feminism, and Native American philosophy. So I first came across Shay's work as a reference in a book on curiosity that I was reading, and it made me curious to find out. Then when I realized she was based here in Atlanta, I said, well, why don't I know this person? So unfortunately, this was after that workshop on embodied cognition that I mentioned earlier. But Shay was kind enough to come over anyway and agree to give a lecture for us, and also to invite me to her own workshop that she organized last October at Spelman, Marginalized Body Epistemologies and 4E Embodied Cognition. I think the website for this is still up. So if you want to go have a look at what the topics were and who some of the people were, I encourage you to go look at that. And sorry for taking so long, but join me in welcoming Shay Welch, please.
Okay, hi. I changed the talk a little bit. This talk is very much about my life and kind of like what I'm living right now, which is a little complicated. So it is inherently feminist. It definitely has a foundation and plenty of inherent ties to oppression theory. And feel free to talk to me about it as much as you want to. New things have come up medically for me in the past 2 weeks that have added on like a whole section at the end of this. So I've just been tinkering with this for a little while now as like new conditions and new diagnoses arise for me. It's weird. Today I've got diagnosed with B6 toxicity. I have it's causing nerve damage. I have never taken vitamins in my life. Nobody knows how I'm getting it. So there are like really weird things that are going on with me, and it all brought me into a bright idea about how to prove embodied cognition is real. So does anybody, so I appreciate the student presence, like it makes me feel like I'm at home. How many people are familiar with the notion of embodied cognition? Okay, a handful. So I'm going to give you just a quick thing. There's like an outline of this. This is not meant for any specialist in anything because I'm not a specialist in any of these things except for the fact that I'm alive in all of this. Embodied cognition is just the idea, and for 99.9% of the people in the room, you will agree with this, that the body is the knower. There is no such thing as the mind separate from the body. Your body knows the world because your body lives the world because the world exists as a result of your body and your relationships with other people. So it's very anti-mind-body dualism. If you ever took philosophy class, it's very anti-computer science, ones and zeros. It is very high-end robotics. You got a body, that's how you function, that's how you know. So this is not a super specialist talk. And actually, at any point, if you're like, what? You can wave at me, you can throw a pencil at me, like I will stop. You can ask me any question that you want to. So this changed into the biopsychosocial affect loop, hypersensitivity, literally, and radical embodied cognition, which means that everything about knowledge in the entire world comes from and is the body. Okay, I have never used slides before. Please pray for me. How do I make this go? So this, as I said, there's a new section. This all started just with one affective feedback loop. One of them starts with borderline personality disorder, primarily associated with women who have lived very traumatic life experiences and war veterans. So Borderline personality disorder is a psychosomatic disorder characterized primarily by affective dysregulation and instability, which impacts all aspects of lived relationality, and it is often a precursor to chronic pain. So most women who end up with some version of BPD, or at least most women who have chronic issues of a central sensitization sort, also have BPD. Okay, so a CSS is central sensitization syndrome. Actually, it's a plural because it stands for an umbrella category for chronic illnesses due to hyperactivity of the central nervous system. This is diagnosed by processes of exclusion, which is you don't have anything, it must be one of these. So this is things that many women have. Fibromyalgia, chronic fatigue syndrome, complex regional pain syndrome, long COVID, and phantom limb. Again, there are a lot of your war veterans. There's this nifty little thing that I've been playing with that people don't get. It's usually not done by anybody. It's rare to find somebody who does it. My pain doctor does it. It's done for medical reasons. I convinced him, based on my own research, to use it for something else. It's called the stellate ganglion nerve block. So it is a lidocaine injection right here into your neck. It goes into your stellate ganglion nerve cluster, which is right here. That is the upper half of your sympathetic nervous system, and it controls all of your physio-affective mechanisms. And that's gonna make me do this. Sorry. That's okay. Okay, so there are some interesting bits. You can take what you need, leave the rest. Okay, so the affective, the system, people will hear the term affect get thrown around depending on what discipline you're in, and it's always used in different kinds of ways. So the affective is biological, it's psychological, it's somatic, and it's social, and I'm going to show you why based on my awesome lived experience. So my argument that proves embodied cognition is the truth about knowledge is that if you intervene into one of the aspects of affect, you will then be able to produce, and sometimes a desirable, change in one of the other ones. How you face cognition and consciousness will affect almost every kind of medical research that you do, in fact. So how we understand cognition matters, especially when we're treating any of the affective disorders. Stellate ganglion blocks are game changers. It changed my life. I get them all the time. I wish I didn't have to get them as much as I do, but my situation is such that I get them way more than an average person would. So it says that if you acknowledge that cognition is affective, which is the body is the knower, that why it is the case that shoving lidocaine into your nerve in your neck can actually change your body system, in your biological system, your affective system, your psychological system, your somatic system, all of those things. It can actually reset things like your body memories and your pre-reflective decision making, which is what we would otherwise refer to as your intuition. Okay, bioethical approaches is that when people can't figure out what's wrong with you, if you think that it's a problem with one of these, but you can't find a source, look for a problem in the other one. That will give you a really good hint about how to stop just diagnosing people with waste can diagnoses. So the disordered, central sensitization is a disordered neuromuscular phenomenology. That means something's wrong with your suitcase. I'm just reading these things to you because I'm trying to go faster now. So you have neuronal hyperactivity and hypersensitivity. You have affective and sensory hypersensitivity. It comes from physical and emotional trauma, which is why it's so common among women and especially women of color. It is a result of neuroplasticity. It's just like you take a hit, you take a hit, you take a hit, you take a hit, you live a hit. That's just kind of how it works. It is from the top down, so it is a central nervous system syndrome that just feeds into the rest of your body from the top down. It produces things called medically unexplained symptoms in the US. Nobody knows what you got, nobody knows why you got it, and that is certainly weird, and we've never seen anybody who does that before. So that's a fun experience of all of the doctor's offices. It can be caused by an autoimmune, which if you know, then you know. This is a hard thing to pin down. It can be post-viral, which is why things like herpes and COVID are like infecting people with these central sensitization syndromes and people don't realize it, right? It could be idiopathic because you just kind of suck and then that's what happens. And then it's a family resemblance concept, which just means that there is no underlying shared symptom or neurochemical situation. It is like you are a family resemblance, just like lots of different kinds of things are games, like chess and soccer and, you know, fishing on Tinder. Y'all don't use Tinder anymore. Like they are all games of a kind, but they look very different. This is what central sensitization syndromes are like. So it's very, very disordered. Your body is very disordered. Okay, so according to the Mayo Clinic Guide, it says that central sensitization syndromes are a hyperexcitability of the central nervous system. It can occur even in, and mostly, yes.
Is there any evidence of shared genetic factor or epigenetic transmission through traumatic experience?
There is a spot where I include, and I would argue, and there are genetic aspects of it. I've got to go to genetic counseling at Emory to look for 3 specific genetic mutations that can be, I would argue, based on my knowledge of all of this stuff, to generational trauma. Because if I have the genetic mutation, then this is what my mother had. And if this is what my mother had, then that's what her mother had. And they are all aligned. It's all aligned of severe physical and sexual abuse all the way down, like generation after generation. So this is recognized as something, so central sensitization is something that is very tied within trauma theory, feminist trauma theory, to generational trauma. So I don't have any research on the epigenetics of it. I just know that there are ways of tying genetic mutations to these. Does that help?
Yes.
Okay, great. Okay. So you don't have to have anything coming at you to feel like you're getting bombarded. It's unfair. They call it like the volume on the radio. So it's like if you blow on me, it could feel like you're just like hitting me with a bat, right? Amplifies messages, things that shouldn't be painful will be painful, and it just can spread like wildfire for no good reason. Okay, borderline personality disorder is very, very similar. Not fun. Usually starts with this, right? This starts very, very early. This is your crazy girlfriend syndrome. Every single time you see a movie about a crazy ex-girlfriend, everything from single white female to girl interrupted to what's probably going on in the substance to all kinds of other movies. Like if you see a movie about a crazy bitch, it's somebody who is considered fatal attraction. It's considered somebody almost always diagnosed with borderline personality disorder. And you will see this a lot on TikTok. It's not great. So you have psychological and emotional trauma causes hyperaffectivity, and hypersensitivity, psychosocial hypersensitivity, which means that you are very aware of how other people are responding to you. So when people like to say that people with borderline are manipulative, they're not. They're aware of potential dangers and they're constantly searching for dangerous interactions. So they are keen to what's going on around them. They're not searching for some sort of, I mean, like these are ways that people who have these like trauma disorders are stigmatized for fun, because people really like to stigmatize people with BPD. BPD can cause a whole lot of MUS and is oftentimes almost always tied with an autoimmune or is idiopathic, and it is almost always comorbid with a central sensitization syndrome. So what you have is something that is an affective tied to affective. So it depends on how you like want to wash your hair with this one. Like, where is the affect? Right. So there's this person called Lenahan. I have been doing BPD research for years and years. Never heard of it, but this is a really good sum. It is a biosocial theory, right? Because it's about your affect and about your relationships. So you are emotionally sensitive. You are inherently sensitive from birth. And so you become more prone to being made hypersensitive given traumatic experiences, right? So things that are bad start to become very, very bad, right? And you are very, very keen to pick up on vibes, like bad vibes, much faster than other kinds of people, right? But it makes you very hard to regulate emotionally because you are so keen to bad vibes. So you're just like constantly in a hypersensitive, hyper aroused state. And right, it makes it hard for people to be in relationships with people because people in relationship don't understand why you aren't chill, right? There is no time for chill when the world is a dangerous place, right? And so then people just say that you've got attitude problems. So what is affect? This is a whole thing. Like I'm talking about all this affect, and it means so many different kinds of things and so many different kinds of disciplines. And here I'm going to give you just right. So there's your generational trauma, and in my native epistemology work, I talk about how it accounts embodied cognition and affect can account for blood memory, right? So it is. I'm so sorry on this side that I've just kind of chosen a side that I'm focusing on, so I apologize. So our affect is words that we use, especially like the moral psychology or neuropsychology, neurobiology, for your pre-reflective ethical know-how. It's your intuition, right? All the things that people say don't exist because women are witches or whatever, it actually exists in neuro, like biology is affective, pre-reflective decision making. It occurs in the back of your brain. Then you have, it is your deliberation and action. It is how you assess the environment. So the fact that you're keen to things and you're hypersensitive, that's your affect. It's like the background motor running of like seeking. I've never seen the Terminator, but for some reason, like there's that thing where it like scans from head to toe, or is that Predator? I don't know. It's old for my time even. Where it's just like the robot like scans head to toe, like looking for signals, or like that's what your affect is doing, like all the time in the background. These are your embodied emotions. It's how you do your moral psychology. It's the way that we understand things as being good or bad. Like we know things. This is the kind of knowledge that marginalized people have had and successfully navigated the world forever and have been told over and over and over and over by the mainstream medical institutions as it came up as a way of instituting patriarchy that women, if you have this, if you claim to operate according to this, you are a witch, much like the woman that they arrested in Texas for being a midwife and helping women who have pregnancies. They just arrested her and are charging her with the possibility of 20 years in prison because she was working according to these affective medical models. Also known as flow. If you're an athlete or a performer or a dancer, this is your flow. That's where it comes from. So, summary, if you're especially sensitive, everything sucks. All right, so in activism is this radical embodied cognition. I'm not going to drag you all through this because most of you all don't care and you know. So radical embodied cognition is the idea that there is no separation between mind and body. It is the idea that cognition is in, around, out and about. It's all around us. It's inside us. It's outside us. It's on us. It's within us. It's through us. It's all of these different ways, like knowing and understanding the world is, it's happening. I'm having these weird media things, which I don't do media, but like if you watch the Wheel of Time and like you get to see like the Aes Sedai with the flows that they. Anyways, sorry. Cognition is affective. We just talked about this. Cognition is dynamical and participatory. It means that there is no cognition in the world. There is no knowledge in the world without making it with other people, and not with other people explicitly, making it with other people's bodies. So when we talk about things like body chemistry, like that's real, right? When we talk about things like vibes, that's real, right? These are things that literally happen. This is how we make the world meaningful for us, for beings like us, because we are not a me, we are y'all, right? Okay. I'm trying to see how much I want to drag you through. But in case you're interested in what it means from a more STEM perspective, what does it mean for the body to be a knower? Cognitive capacities and content comes from, in, and to the body and its active and affective interactions with the world. The body is the material through which the world becomes meaningful because the body operates in normative relationships in its environment. For the embodied knower, affect directs our perceptual capacities to uncover how one ought to go about the world. It is what leads us to pick out the things that matter to our perspective at any given moment by sorting the environment for our physiological, emotional, and social needs, right? So this is like looking for things that are dangerous, looking for things that are safe, looking for people who are safe, these kinds of things. Like it is your cognition and your meaning making in the world is about scanning and bringing the meaning to us by figuring out what matters. Like certain kinds of things will stand out to us that is not standing out to the person next to you because they don't have a historical lived experience that even your person sitting next to you has. Okay, so the world makes sense to every body differently, and every body makes sense of the world differently. According to my friend Penny Jean, she says, you can't be sensitized without sensitivity. I mean, you just can't. Right? So this is where your fun oppression stuff comes in. So I call this, so if cognition is a dynamical system, which means like things are coming in, going out, picking up, going on, I kind of think about this as like a tumbleweed in a certain sort of respect. Then borderline personality disorder, central sensitization disorders as a system, right, as an affect system, is a toxic dynamical system and shows us that the affect dynamical system of embodied cognition is legit, right? So the thing is, you can't tell these sort of nifty little models are legitimate and substantive until they go wrong, right? And then you're like, oh, I think they call this falsifiability in the philosophy of science. And if that's not how they use that term, we're going to pretend that it is. So what we do know, and there's this thing, if you've taken intro to biology, I think I slept through mine. There's a term called audiopoiesis. It means you're just trying to establish boundaries for yourself that make you a you, right? So if you have trauma, that stops your ability to make yourself a you, right? Because abuse is a toxic environment that destroys your boundaries and your ability to make boundaries. So as you as a child are growing up and you're trying to develop and make a you and make boundaries, and somebody is hitting you or sexually abusing you or locking you in closets or locking you out of the house or withholding food from you or doing any of these kinds of things from you, your ability to make you a you, especially in the absence of them, cannot happen. And so as you keep trying to identify yourself, the only thing that you're building into yourself is trauma, right? And so this is one of the reasons why you end up with a shot sympathetic system. This isn't in order. That means that when people are like, well, you're not living that life anymore, it's over, let it go. Like your sympathetic system is shot. The longer you take these kinds of abuses, your sympathetic system, given neuroplasticity, changes. When people tell you to let it go, they don't understand what you have been through and what has been done to you, right? So you have a lack of predictability for what matters to you, salience, what matters, right? So when your internal affective dynamics are constantly all over the place because you can't establish a predictable environment for yourself because people are actually purposefully trying to prevent you from establishing a predictable environment for yourself, you can't figure out what matters. Right? And that makes your need to figure out what matters really desperate. And that's why you spend more of your adult years constantly looking for the things that matters instead of just chilling out, right? Scaffolding for survival. This is the idea of picking things up as you go along, like your cognition and your knowledge systems, like scaffold, they build on top of each other, like the construction, right? So the more dysregulated you are on the outside, the more dysregulation comes to your afferent and efferent systems. So your afferent systems come from the outside and go up, and your efferent systems goes from the inside out. So you're affected and effected. Okay. So this is where my that last slide, this is all me. This is my business right here. So my claims are that an innate sensitivity combined with abuse context drives the cognitive system to churn its own organism organizing toxicity. You are establishing and developing yourself in toxicity. You are churning, right? It just festers, as it were, right? So your affect and your perceptual stimuli go together. For people with BPDCSS, they experience the environment as noxious, which feeds into a noxious affect, which feeds into a noxious pain, which feeds into a noxious perception, and which feeds into a noxious assessment of the environment. Like, it's like everything that happens is dirty, right? Everything that comes in, everything that goes around on the inside, everything that comes out is dirty, it's tainted, it's toxic. You can't shake it, right? It might be gone, but it's still there, right? So a traumatized body, brain, environment, dynamical system of affect and action that experiences its environment as constitutively poisonous. Okay, my pain enacted. So yay. This is how I just started this whole thing. Look, there's Penny Jean. That's my friend Penny Jean. She is a genius. She literally has created the neurofeedback modulation systems and devices and programs for people who have been traumatized. I think she's with us somewhere. Hi, Penny Jean. Thanks for being with us today. So she tinkers and stuff. She makes those things. And then she takes people who are traumatized or who have pain, and she does like treatments with them. She puts the neuromodulations on, and then it affects their sensory perceptions with different kinds of stimuli, and it retrains the brain to calm down and perceive things differently. It changes how things are perceived. So she's amazing. She is my fact checker on this. So she is one of my resident scientists. I have another one named Beck who works with us as well. And so this is not all totally made up. This is just like an EEG. So she does measurements on brains to figure out where trauma is, and then gets those. If you've ever seen an EEG, it's like how the brain lights up, right? So there is a biopsychosocial model of pain. This is relevant to me being able to show this. So it is the non-linearity that is observed in the experience of pain, and the pain neuromatrix is conceptualized as a system involved in all of this detection, attentional orientation, and response to highly relevant sensory events within a specific context. So this is all relevant to bodily integrity, regardless of the sensory modality involved. So this is one of these things that's just going on about how medicine and science and neurology has been wrong for so long, and that pain itself is so highly dependent on its relationship to the environment and the history of sensory stimulation, that trying to pretend like something is happening and that it's pain and that it has nothing to do with the body's needs affectively is wrong, right? So the way that the body experiences the world, depending on what its needs are physiologically, it's going to determine how pain is read, if pain is read, how much pain is read, those kinds of things. Okay, I found a picture and then I marked on it. Okay, so there's a pain system, the things that matter for us. This little outside thing, that's the environment. This is your skin, right? That's where the sensory comes in. So I circled it. So that's your environment. That's your small nerve fibers, your skin. So you have the toxic on the outside. You end up with the toxic on the inside. Your dorsal ganglia is tied to your peripheral nervous system. I put in the stellate ganglion because that's where I keep getting jabbed. And that is what affects the central nervous system. So when you stab yourself in the neck, and then you shove in a bunch of lidocaine, it actually increases all the blood flow to your brain, and it resets. It like freezes your brain, and it like stops all of your just hyperactivity. You just chill, and it lasts for like 2 or 3 hours. And every time you do this, it actually resets your nervous system. And the more that you do it, it can chill you out and chill you out and chill you out, because the only The only thing that people have learned to do is to use this experimentally on war vets. And it gets rid of their PTSD after a series. It has chilled mine out a lot, especially, and I'm going through a lot of withdrawals. I'm trying to come off antidepressants right now. It's killing me. I can't come off them. If you've read anything about the benzo situation, right? That's me. So I keep getting the stellate ganglions to help me try to undo the doom of trying to go through the withdrawals, and also to help with my BPD, and also to help with my CSS. And every time things go really, really, really bad for me, I call my doctor and I say, can I please get a stellate? And he says, come in. He jabs me. 30 minutes later, I feel much better. And by the end of the day, I am fine. Right? It's wild. It's so wild. It's so crazy. Okay. So 10 years ago, Penny Jean, we were playing games. We were having fun. We were drinking wine. She was doing research on trauma, and she did an EEG on me. My brain is a tornado, was a tornado right here. Like, that is all of my hyperdrive of my brain existed right here, which is really weird. It was like so located. And this area of your brain happens to be where all of your affective, pre-reflective decision-making is going on. So like the part before things start processing through your cerebellum and becomes like an emotion, this is where you're feeling things. And so we were making jokes that these were my rear brakes, because instead of me constantly being a psycho out about in the streets, is like I had been working so hard to keep myself alive by stopping all of the things that I wanted to do. And so I would be working so hard in response to my environment to not get to that point where it was no longer controllable, right? And so this is what we would otherwise refer to as your intuition. I was making a whole lot of rear brakes decision making, and that was the most important thing in my brain in my life 10 years ago, right? We redid this year. I think last time that I hung out with these. This is my sensory motor cortex. I call it my ouchie ouchie. My shit hurts. Like, it hurts. Like, these are super orthotics, and I'm so lucky. I haven't been able to wear shoes since last May. Like, pain, so much pain, and we don't know why. Wait till the next time. We had not been able to figure out why it hurt so bad. But the thing is when you have BPD and other kind of affective traumatic disorders, it turns into physiological manifestations. So I was telling Penny Jean, I was explaining it to her. I was like, the way that I understand that is that like all my hell lived right there, and then the rent got too high, so it picked up and moved someplace cheaper. Right? Because apparently it didn't know how much all my boots cost. And now I'm just real in my feels about it, because I was okay when it was affecting me there, but now I can't wear any of my boots, and it's a problem. It's a problem, right? And so like, this is it. The same thing that was causing me all of my pain in my life was my affective before. Everything that caused me pain and gets all of my attention all the time right now is my affective. It's my sensory motor relationship to sensory stimuli. It just picked up and moved right on over the same amount of activity, right? So it was an EEG image. So these are my gamma waves. Those are the reds and oranges. Those are indicative of your brain's highest levels of cognitive attention, your cognitive engagement, and your cognitive sensitivity. Right? So it happens in both places, 10 years apart, almost to the day of each other. It happened in one affective part of my brain, and then it picked up and moved to another part of my brain. So my claim is that, and Penny Jean has agreed with me, thank God, my scaffoldings of trauma eventually turned the affective BPD into the affect of CSS. Okay, so the stellate ganglion nerve block, I have already explained it to you. That's where it is. Huge needle right to the throat. It's pretty cool. These are the things that have improved. I mean, it comes back because I'm in with these withdrawals now, and that sucks, but that's a whole, lots of people have to deal with this more than we ever knew. My depression itself, actually, gone. Even with the withdrawals, didn't come back. Depression, gone. Anxiety, it controls that. It'll get rid of it. Eventually it'll build back up. It'll come back, especially if I lower my dose of the medications. My physical fog, I used to feel like I was walking in a physical fog, like it just unbelievable London fog. And within 30 minutes of that very first one, the sun came out. Like absolutely not, never again, not even a little bit, not even a bit. I cannot tell you. Call a pain doctor from that. Find out who does this. I can give you my doctor's information. It helps with my withdrawals. It helps with my mood. Right. Oh, I've always been obnoxiously perky. It's okay. But I have not been perky as of late. I am back to being perky. And sensitivity, I am significantly less sensitive to most things except for the withdrawals, which I'm just going to complain about that because I'm dealing with that quite a bit today. Your ganglion nerve block matters for those who are interested in embodied cognition, because acknowledging that cognition is affective clarifies how the stellate ganglion nerve block affects the embodied disorders. Repeatedly anesthetizing interventions into the autonomic system, which is your heart and your lung and your vascular and all of that stuff, can potentially reset your body memories. This is where all of your abuse is stored. So this is one of the reasons why people who have been molested or raped a lot can actually just reenact and just enact that experience in other environments that are totally safe and healthy because it's stored in your body memory. This happens for people who are fighters, right? So if somebody starts playing with you and you are a professional fighter, you could kill somebody. That's why you'll find out that people who are really, really major fighters, they don't go out. They don't hit the streets at night because they don't ever want to get in the situation where they could be hit with manslaughter, because that happens. So this, war veterans, it happens to war veterans. So it can reset your procedural pain, your automatic embodied memories and your responses, your schemas, the way that you understand the world in relationship to your body. And it resets your embodied autonomic patterns, like your heart rate, your blood pressure, etc. That can reset your reflective decision-making for what matters to you. If you don't feel like you're in danger all the time, if things are butterflies and sunshine, chill out. Like, you can just have a drink. It's fine. If you are somebody who can just have a drink, and that's fine. Right. But wait, I know y'all are so almost ready to go home. I'm hurrying. There's more. There's something called small fiber neuropathy, and I'll tell you what it is, but it sucks. It just means that you feel pain for no good reason. Sounds very much like central sensitization. Penny Jean and I were on the phone the day that I got diagnosed 2 weeks ago, and it's characterized by a lived experience of progressively increasing excruciating pain and a consistently progressively decreasing quality of life. There's no treatment. So I was in my feels. I called Penny Jean. I said, Penny Jean, guess what? And she was like, that makes a lot of sense. How does that affect your talk? And I was like, shit, I know that was the first thing. That was the first thing that I talked about. Let's talk it through, right? Has a wrench been thrown? Small fiber neuropathy is characterized primarily by severe pain. It's called stocking glove. The reason why I can't wear shoes is because the nerve damage, as nerve damage does, happened in my feet and hands first. So I can't, thank God for orthotics, they're not great, but I can't have anything pressing against my feet, and I can't stand on anything solid because it will just cause raging nerve pain. It's, I was at a conference presenting with no shoes on. I had been teaching for the year with no shoes on. I had been living, I had to buy Uggs that were 2 sizes too big to close my feet in over the winter, but it worked. That was cool. Your small fibers control your autonomic system, your heart and your lungs. When your small fibers don't work right, your lungs don't work right, it starts to collapse. Your heart stops to work right. It stops pumping blood to your brain. Not great. It is your peripheral nervous system as opposed to your central nervous system, but it only happens at the level of the somatic system. So these are not your motor neurons. These are not the nerves that control like your ability to not be a puppet, but you get my point, right? This business. It's just this. And not even that, right? Not even that. Dysautonomia, another thing that I'm struggling with as well. Severe dizziness, chronic fatigue, nausea, brain fog, really bad circulation. It reduces the blood to your brain. It just does. Yes. You got a familiarity with a little bit of dysautonomia?
I was just wondering because I was like thinking about like the other symptoms and how like having like thinking about like the hypersensitivity to things and maybe your body like it could even be two things like your body's in overdrive too much and then it's exhausted and maybe you can't sleep or maybe it's just like the trauma is so ingrained in your body and brain that it's hard to sleep and insomnia. So I don't know.
It's that you are so exhausted that you can't sleep. Because it's still messing with your blood flow. Like what happens is like the small nerve fibers in your vascular system is not opening and closing the vessels right. So they're not closing all the way and they're not opening all the way. So like your lungs aren't working right, your heart's not working right, and all of these other things. So like you can't sleep and you're also very, very uncomfortable, right? You're sweating, lots of sweating. So stellate ganglions also treat menopause symptoms. Hot flashes, things like that. So it does in fact improve things like dysautonomia. Not helping me because of withdrawals, and I'm just going to keep complaining about that because it bothers me more than everything else. All right, so if we just map on to the CSS description of pain, small fiber neuropathy is a hyperexcitability of the peripheral nervous system that can occur even in the absence of sensory information coming from the environment. Sensitization is like the volume control on a radio that has become stuck on high. It amplifies the sensory messages. People with a sensitized nervous system, central or peripheral, may experience pain in response to things that should not be painful or experience heightened levels of pain in response to things that only cause mild to moderate pain. Pain spreads to other areas for no reason. It's exactly the same as central sensitization. It's exactly the same. It's just your skin, right? So every single trait about small fiber neuropathy, because it is literally just connected to your barrier, your relationship to the world, does the same exact thing that central sensitization does. So if you know anyone, any mother, any auntie, any friend, any of yourself who has a CSS, turns out almost every CSS has some kind of central to small fiber neuropathy. Your fibromyalgias, your irritable bowel syndromes, there's your sleep disturbances, right? Numbness, burning, tingling, cramps, PMDD is both a central sensitization and a small fiber neuropathy, if you were ever wondering. So all of this shit, sorry, I mean, all of these things, like these things just lay on top of each other and the whole world is going out there like, oh, personality disorders are just like emotional and oh, the central nervous system does its own thing. Central sensitization is like its own thing. The peripheral nervous system is its own thing. Guess what? They're not any different from each other. They all do exactly the same thing. All right, so we get that. I've talked about that. No wrench thrown. I remain brilliant. It's great. I'm really nervous about this. So as it turns out, the autonomic system is the physical basis of the affective system. It controls the internal mechanisms that respond to the environment, which, right, so your neuronal excitability or heart rate, your heart blood pressure, your muscle tension, your pupil dilation, all of these things, right? You have in response to other people in the environment, any dangers and safeties, loves and lovers, and other of those kinds of things, right? Sweating, all of that stuff. This is all driven by your internal affective system that is controlled by your small fibers. These are all of the things that are caused by central sensitization syndromes, and these are all of the things that give rise to the affective situations of affective personality disorders. Okay, so guess what? It's all about the sensitivity. If you're born sensitive, keep an eye out. You have small fibers, you have your central nervous system for your CSS, you have your autonomic system, which is your biological systems of affect, and your embodied knowledge. Yes.
Do you think something like picking when you're always like kind of picking your fingers fits into the story because it's almost the opposite of hypersensitivity in that you don't really feel the pain when you pick, you just keep doing it versus you feel the pain like on a high level.
As somebody who is a chronic picker and spent all of my teenage years and 20s wearing little fuzzy gloves so that I wouldn't do this, and I have plenty of give me a hand, you'll see it all. It's a neurological, it's like called akathisia. It's one of the kinds of akathesias where you're just like this restlessness and you just do this and you're digging for affect. You know what I mean? Like you're digging, there's nothing there. You're seeking something, and you're also causing a self-soothing behavior through causing yourself pain because you're people who have like affective dysregularities, their tolerance for pain is significantly higher than other people. So the kinds of things that you think that people who dig at their skins that they should feel that and it should hurt, they don't feel it. You'll feel it later. You'll feel it later. It hurts, just not at the time it feels good. Okay, so closing the affective loop. The loop that I didn't know was this big. I mean, I knew it was this big before, but I could never account for it before. And then I got great news, and then I was like, oh no. And then I was like, oh yes. Right? So we close the affective loop. We have the emotional affective loop. We have the affect of the central nervous system. We have the affect, the somatic affect of the small fiber. We have, right, this is your affect is at the bottom. You have the stellate ganglion block that can actually, when you inject it, affect any one of those systems. So if you mess with any one of these systems, you're going to mess with any and all of the other ones. That's just how it works. And it's all affect. All of this is affect. All of this creates affect. All of this influences affect. All of this changes affect. It's all affected. Okay, guess what? Guess how you treat this stuff? Friends, therapy, right? So you go to therapy. You have a support system. You work out. And then don't do the things that they tell you to do, or you'll end up like I'm in, that gives you seizure medication, right? Because seizure medication exists to slow down your brain activity. And if you slow down your brain activity, you slow down your emotions. You're not so like hysterical all the time. It slows your brain down so that like your brain isn't processing external stimuli as fast, so that anything that would be hyper painful is going to be just like dulled down. And then they also slow down the nerves in your small fibers. So it numbs your literal barrier to the world. So everything's like a blood-brain barrier, nerve barrier thing that's going on in here. So what is the treatment for all this shit that hurts so much? Self-care. And then kill the brain, right? Be kind to yourself or zombify yourself. Take your pick, do it all. Do not take the seizure medication. I am not a doctor of that kind. I'm just saying. So, major conclusions. I said a whole bunch of stuff of a whole bunch of different kinds of things that never get talked about in the same room together. Philosophically, the toxic dynamical system of the BPD, CSS, and SFN, which can be manipulated by interventions such as the stellate ganglion, substantiates a radically embodied model of cognition that all cognition is affective and action-oriented, bioethical, because I have dealt with so many doctors. I had 4 neurologists, and not one of them knows anything that the other one knows, and none of them know shit. I'm the one who had to, sorry, I'm the one who had to find my own way to where I'm at. I had nothing because everybody just wants to go, you know, and then they kick you out the door. And if you don't have good insurance, or you don't have access to good research, or you don't advocate for yourself, or you don't have a teaching schedule that allows you to research, you're never going to find anything. They just throw people in the trash. They don't even try to help you. It's so bioethically, if you're a medical practitioner, understanding cognition as affect could improve, and understanding this affective system, it can improve your diagnostic and treatment methods if you consider the expansive domain of the body's affective system. It's not just about believing patients, because doctors are very good about believing you now. It's about them doing something about it. Do something. Yes.
Previous slide, do you think the lack of self-care causes those conditions, or do you think they spontaneously occur and then to it?
Both, especially people with BPD run out in the streets and do all kinds of stuff that's not great. Right. So didn't help. I didn't do myself any favors when I was younger. But the thing is like, there's no choice anymore. And people who are parents, single, working mother parents, they end up, their lives just end very quickly because they don't have any help and they don't have time for self-care. And then the only thing that they have at that point is medication, and the medications cause early dementia. So that's why you see so many poor people end up on disability and end up poor, because they can't engage in practices of self-care. Yeah.
I'm just wondering why the solid family block doesn't have the center for all of these different issues, because, you know, seeing that you have to do all this research and like really advocate for yourself together and look for your done, and it seems to have like really good.
Most people don't even know what it is. Like, most doctors don't know what it is. Neurologists don't know what it is. Not every pain doctor knows what it is. Not every good pain doctor does it.
Are there like any side effects, or like does it lose efficacy over time?
Yeah, it's like pain. So basically you get this little window where it chills everything out. So it calms everything down, and so blood starts rushing to your brain. It starts rushing. It's primarily used to treat neuropathic pain disorders in the upper body, whereas like the dorsal ganglion root does the lower body. So it's just constantly used for upper body complex regional pain syndrome and other kinds of things like this. And it was starting, the research that I find is like 2023, when they start putting things out about PTSD treatment a little bit earlier. In fact, my doctor had done, he had done some injections on some vets for the VA a couple of years ago who were actually doing research on this, but they never, I mean, he was never contacted again. He just knew how to give the injection. And so they got sent to him, and then he did it. And he was like, I never really heard anything back from them. Tell me more about this research, because he considered me credible. Thank God. Right. And then they're now finding out that it does some treatment for chronic fatigue syndrome and long COVID by increasing the blood flow. But the lidocaine is temporary for those kinds of things. But like when it's resetting the central nervous system, and then like you have a chance to calm down every time you get one, like they usually tell you to do it like a series of 10, like back to back, right? Every 2 weeks, every week, every 2 weeks or something like that, because it'll pause it and then you'll chill out, and then like things will ramp up again, and you'll turn back around and you'll hit it and you'll calm down. And then so it just slowly over time. And why this isn't, like I have talked to him every single time because I use him for everything. He was my hero right now, Dr. Reiser. But like he was like, tell me more about your experience with this. How is this? You know, this is so fascinating. I'm not surprised that all of these things are happening, but nobody talks about this. You know, we are not seeing any research on this at conferences, nothing. So it exists in a pocket of research well deep into the world. Hopefully I'm done. I'm done. I'm done.
That's your like memory schemas and some consequences. Does that have any like negative effects for like non-negative memory schemas that you have?
I mean, I guess the thing is like, if you just have regular schemas, not really, it does slow you down for a little bit, you know what I mean? Because you are like, you get one and the whole rest of the day, you're just like, or if you're super hyper excited, you're just like, I remember I was like, that night I was like, something seems different. And then I woke up the next day with like so much anxiety. And I was like, oh, this is what I live in every day. This is what I feel like. And last night I didn't have any of this. Wow. Right? So I honestly don't know. The thing is you are depressing your autonomic nervous system. But the thing is because it's just lidocaine, it's not any medication, it's not steroids every time you do it, it's none of those things. There's no long, I am not a medical doctor. As far as I have seen, there are no long lasting things. Anything like it can really increase your blood pressure because it increases blood flow, so it can like super spike your blood pressure. It has like all these weird side effects, like I won't be able to swallow for most of the rest of the day because it just like numbs all this, and I can't like if I try to drink, I like almost drown. It's really dramatic. But like you'll get chest pain. You can like there are all kinds of weird things that happen because you just depress your autonomic nervous system. But like once the lidocaine starts to wear off, it's just like going to the dentist, and it all pops back. I don't want to say online, that's an activism thing, but it comes back to life full force. Yes.
About the radical embodied cognition, would you say that's something you came across in like research and academia, or is it more like word from experience, like your life experience?
I will tell you this, it is the standard understanding of cognition, not written in those terms for all like feminist, like women of color. If you go back, period, and then it starts popping, like all indigenous stuff, it's everywhere. Like that, like the body is the knower, everything being affective and being relational and being in relation to the land and being in relation to each other and knowledge being a product of like co-embodiment, all of like that has existed. So when I came across it in my native epistemology research. And then I was like, neat. And then so I started checking it out. And so the reason why I had the conference that I had this past year is because there are no dudes, like it's almost all dudes. And there's like 3 women. And the guys talk about stuff like autism or, oh God, the way that they talk about borderline personality disorder, because they want to talk about madness, like they're being cool and cutting edge. But like my hero was doing a Q&A on like disorders of the self. The man is not disordered. Wonderful writer, brilliant, lovely guy, totally oblivious, knew I was there. Somebody asked him about personality disorders, and he was like, well, you know, all those people with borderline personality disorders, you know, nobody likes to interact with them. Like, they're just difficult. I would say doctors love to talk about how combative they are. And I was like, dude, you know what I mean? So like there's this huge like inherent underlining exclusionary work that's going on in embodied cognition, and when you're like, oh no, you were saying this, but do you know who said this like 100 years ago? Do you know who said this like 6 months ago? Do you know, like, are you reading anything else besides your buddies? They're not, right? And so yeah, so this is the thing where you've been reading women at all of any kind, you will have seen this everywhere, right? Yes.
So out of curiosity, does the game premium injection like work more effectively for certain patients, like compared to others?
Yeah. Honestly, I can't tell you why. Dr. Reiser can't tell you why. My guess would be that some people are more in relationship to their body than others. If you're open to being aware of your body, or if you're hypersensitive to your body's sensitivity, you're gonna see more of the different kinds of effects, right? Yes.
Yeah, your last slide, I think it kind of sentenced as like all cognition is both like affective and action oriented.
Mm-hmm.
And so I sort of had a question about like your view of freedom and like sort of identity within that, because I think it was also mentioned as one of the things to sort of discuss. Do you see sort of affect and action oriented as like separate things? Or do you see this like affect is also action oriented and actions are also effective, and it like continues to kind of move?
They're the same thing. So it's almost like you don't even have a coin. You just have like a ball of like action and perception and knowledge and knowing and experiencing and world and meaning making and all of these, like, and you just kind of like roll it and it's all happening at one time. So when you are knowing, you know what I mean? Like when you know, I even just know that I'm not gonna hit it. Like I feel that air. I know that that's air resistance, like even without knowing where it's, but whatever. It's not knowledge, it's knowing. So everything about being in the world is a knowing. It's knowing how. You don't know that. And so all perception is action. All perception is knowing. It's all the same thing. Did you want it one more time?
I guess that sort of relates to then sort of the identity question.
Oh yeah.
About well, clearly like a lot of this project has been like coming to learn yourself and like participating in that project of knowing. So I suppose like you like any thoughts of just like how that like this process has sort of like understood or like kind of proven some of the identity stuff I think you're working with, or like I was like trying to force you to like reshape or like re-understand your own body, that kind of thing. I don't know if that question is.
Yeah. No, I always knew who I was.
Oh.
And I always knew the things. Right? But I did. I always knew the things, and then I would tell people things, and they would be like, right? And then I started saying it like this, and they were like, oh, right? What is weird for the identity part is when they told, I race motorcycles, I am a performing circus artist. No longer. I am no longer, right? My motorcycle is now parked. You know, I'm storing all of my race gear. I have taken all of my aerial equipment down. Who am I? I can barely do research. I almost canceled today. I don't. I took some caffeine before I came. It's working out. I was really close to canceling because, like, I'm struggling so much. And I was like, I'm not going to let people down. And I'm glad that I didn't because I thought it was going to be a bunch of like faculty members. And I'm so glad that I have you all. You made this so amazing for me. I'm so grateful that you're here. I have no idea who I'm going to be because who I am right now doesn't make sense because I'm me. I'm Shay. I am this person who's this, but like, I can't do these. You know what I mean? Like I don't have it. I don't even have my boots. Like it's a problem. And now I have to figure out who am I going to be if I can't constantly do research and publish all the time. You know, if I can't read, if I can't focus, if my pupils are dilated too much and I'm busy all the time, like what am I doing if I'm not, you know, on a motorcycle all the time? Like, you know, Leather is my friend. So I'm really struggling with that. You know, I had to tell my department chair the other day, like, I don't know what's going to happen to me. I have 6 months or I have 20 years and we don't know. And then I started crying because I was just like, I don't know what is it. And I was like, this is so weird. I don't cry. Well, I guess I do now. You know, so it is a project. If you're ever going to do any research, please do it about yourself or somebody that you love. It makes it worthwhile in a really meaningful sense. Yes.
May I ask what the brain regions were that sort of shifted in?
So one of them is here. It's right there. So I forget the name, and I knew I should have put the name on there, but it's like the part right above the brain stem. So it gets all of that perceptual sensory information that's coming in from the peripheral nervous system and all of the outside things. Penny, I don't mean to disappoint you. And then it starts going up into your sense-making capacities. No. So it's not. It's like right above your brain. It starts with a P. Maybe. Does start with a P. And, wait, do you know what I'm talking about?
That sounds about right. I mean, it looked either visual or posterior parietal.
There we go. Posterior, yes. Okay.
And I think the precuneus is between occipital and parietal.
Okay. Is that a little closer in? Because she was trying to explain brains to me in 3 dimensions, and I was like, Penny Jean, it's a circle point. And she was like, that's not how a brain works. It's got floors. And then I just said, okay, is this even? And that we just
the main question I wanted to ask was, are there any like pathways between the two structures, or do you know of any like functional relationships between those two areas?
What I do know is that pathways exist between all of the areas. Are you gonna help me with this at all? Okay, pathways exist between all of the areas, and I know that pathways can be created between areas based on your experiences and the needs of your brain at the time. That's kind of why more like depending on like at where the activity's at.
So it might be like sort of adjusted to your own.
Yes, yes, this is true. And it also has to do with the fact that we actually have sensory modalities in different parts of our body. So one of the things that Penny explains to me about why it is that the person next to you doesn't have the same experience you have. Like if you have a vanilla ice cream and they have a vanilla ice cream and then you taste the vanilla ice cream, even if you both like it, it doesn't taste the same because people don't have taste buds in the same places on their tongue. So every single person has a unique pattern of taste buds on their tongue, which means that everything tastes different to each other, even if you're eating the same thing. It's crazy. And she was like, this is why when people can't make sense with each other, she was like, this is why, because like your hairs respond differently, how sensitive you are to wind pressure, air pressure, like how to sugar and all of those other kinds of things. So I do know that all of that impacts the kinds of pathways that get either created or prioritized in the brain for sense making.
Could I ask if you have any guess as to why like it switched to the sensory mode for you?
Because that's what would happen for everybody, because they're both affective, right? So it is the idea that it's all a relationship of painful experience of trauma to the body. And if the body is the source of all knowing, then high activity in one place will eventually, if it becomes too consuming, it will then have to find more real estate somewhere else. But that's the best I got for you on that one.
Thank you.
Did it at least help a little
Yeah,
bit?
that's good.
Okay. Yes. And then, go ahead.
Is this kind of activity very toxic? Like, does pain beget pain the way mania begets mania?
Yes. So the more you're exposed to pain, the more you will have pain as a standpoint experience. So that's why emotional pain can create central sensitization syndrome and or small fiber neuropathy, because your body has now come to learn that the world is nothing but painful. And so it will actually create pain for you. Like if you're having a fine day, it'll figure out something else to do for you. So pain does in fact beget pain. It's one of the few things that really, it's unfair. Why joy can't beget joy, I don't know, but pain in fact does beget pain in all of the different affective places in the body. Yes. Okay. So one of the reasons that BPD is hard to treat is because people are assholes and they don't give any sensitivity to the needs of other people who need needs. You know what I mean? When you're like, I have needs and they're usually emotional needs, and other people are going to consider you kind of hysterical as opposed to like, you know, just deserving of a little extra tender loving care, or a little extra explanation. So there's that. So somebody asked me in the talk that I gave last week, like, how do you handle people with BPD? I was like, first of all, stop trying to think of them as people to be handled. They're people, right? They're people to be treated as knowers. But yes. Yes. So I wanted to hit the oppression aspect of it first, to say that people who have BPD are just knowing and going about the world differently because they know the world differently, because the world has known them differently. But the stellar ganglion blunt it was a game changer. It did things to me that I didn't ever think that it could know, and it could in fact be different. You know what I mean, for somebody else. But I know for me, it really helped. Yeah.
I mean, from the industry, like, I guess, does it show like,
So the reds and oranges were showing the most hyperactive parts of my brain.
okay, but is that necessarily I guess
Mm-mm.
each person
It's not. So if it were the case that in that posterior part, I still had all of my hyper engagement in that area, but I didn't have BPD. It's that it'd just be really, really good. It could be mania, but like maybe even a important good mania, or, you know what I mean? But the thing is that it just means that that is your most engaged aspect of your brain.
Thank you.
And then, okay, so we'll do 1, 2, and then I think everybody's starting to wear out, so go ahead. Me neither.
I think you mentioned.
They're the same.
And then
That's kind of the thing is that like your sensitivity is just going to be sensitive, so it will be the case, right? So if you're more emotionally sensitive, it's also likely to be the case that you really like the feel of satin more than other people. Do you know what I mean? Like they're just like it's like soft textures are going to be a thing for you because you're hypersensitive in ways that other people aren't.
you know, is there sort of when you look
Yeah, so this definitely went into the epigenetics question. It, especially for women, you inherit hypersensitivity, especially for generational trauma issues. So it's nothing is guaranteed, but they do carry biomarkers. So for the hyperactivity for BPD, you tend to have a biomarker for bipolar and BPD and those things. You have a biomarker that makes it more likely that you're going to be hyperactive in that part of your brain. It's weird. So my friend did the research. She told me. Okay, yeah.
Person perfectly. Something that you said that was one of the more recommended for CMBC for anti-medication.
Yep.
This is like a bit more. A lot of what you said resonated kind of like some experiences that happened with biomedicine recently.
Mm-hmm.
So I've developed this series of symptoms that are consistent with visual snow syndrome.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just curious, is that fall under the umbrella of CSS, right?
It can be tied to other CSSs, especially vision, all over the place for CSSs, also for small fiber. And autoimmune, which is connected to both of them. So anticonvulsants, those kinds of things actually cause all of those kinds of visual disruptions as well. So that's what I know is that you'll find the vision distortions in CSSs. I will tell you this. Visual distortions and visual impairment and visual damage is one of the more common side effects of these seizure medications. Be aware.
Okay.
Not everybody has side effects. I am not a medical doctor. I'm just I do pharmacogenetics and phonetics and all of those things for fun, just because I think that a lot of the anti-seizure medicines that I took for BPD caused a lot of seizure excess. And it's fun trying to come off all these medications right now. But I don't know. You can investigate.
Okay.
Yes. Okay. So I think, yeah, y'all stuck around for a good time. Thanks.
Thank you.